Welcome to the second season of the Moving Forward series. And for those of you that have just started watching my channel this season or just subscribed to my channel this season, the Moving Forward series is where I kind of do a little bit of a season recap for all 24 teams in MLS at the end of the season, and then I of course will do a moving forward episode of your team once they either get eliminated from the playoffs or when we get into the playoff round. Every time when a team gets eliminated during the playoff round, that's when I of course do the moving forward episode of them. And in the moving forward episode, I of course will talk about for teams that have got eliminated in the regular season, I'll talk about the records that they currently have, and that for teams that got eliminated in the playoffs, I'll talk about their regular season's record with their records, their points total, the goal score, goal allowed, and the goal differential, and where they got eliminated in the playoffs. And I also talk about the top goal scored, the top assist leader, and also talk about what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward to see how they can, of course, improve their season in the near future. Now, we're going to start off the first episode of this season moving forward series with FC Cincinnati, who becomes the first team to be eliminated from the playoffs in MLS. And FC Cincinnati, obviously, they are an expansion team, and they're currently having a record of 5-3-20 with just 18 points so far, which, by the way, with 18 points so far this season, that actually now ties the mark that Chivas USA actually got in their expansion year. And that, I know that year there was only 32 games, but at least the good news for FC Cincinnati, as it has just kind of been a historical bad season for them, is that at least they're not the worst expansion side, and that if they can just get one more point in these next couple of games, they would not be officially the worst team in MLS in terms of their expansion year. But overall, it's been a disaster year for FC Cincinnati, and for a team that, in the beginning of the season, I thought, I know that they're probably not going to be like Atlanta and LAFC and being one of the best expansion team in history, but I didn't think they would be that bad and just approach to 2005 Chivas USA kind of expansion year bad. And when you look at the amount of goals that they have scored, they only scored 28 goals so far this season, which is the worst in MLS, and that they also have allowed 67 goals so far this season, which is also the worst in MLS. And unlike in terms of the goal scoring, where they're not that far off in terms of being the worst goal scoring team in the league. The next team that scored the fewest goal besides them is Vancouver with 30 goals, but the goals allowed and the goals that they have conceded is by far the worst in MLS, and that the next team that has the worst goal concede mark this season is Montreal with 56 goals, and that they are also on verge of not only breaking the mark that Orlando City set last year in terms of conceding 74 goals, which is the most in MLS history, but they could potentially reach a mark that we have never seen before, which is become the first team ever to concede 80 goals. Like, I thought when teams start conceding 70 goals, that really kind of blow my mind, and that makes me feel that of course won't happen again. But the fact that FC Cincinnati is about to reach new heights in terms of goal allowed, and that they're going to concede 80 plus goal, does that mean that we are going to start seeing teams that is going to concede 80 plus goal in a season? I mean, I know MLS for the last couple of years, goal scoring has definitely come up, and that it seemed like the worst team in the league tends to just completely drop the ball in terms of their defensive shape. But these last couple of years has just kind of been ridiculous with the amount of goals that we have seen teams concede, and that the emphasis on defending in MLS has clearly lost its point, and that I guess this is what happened when you see a lot of MLS teams start to spend on the attack, and that is really hard now in this era of MLS where teams are trying to be be defensive and trying to head into the season kind of a defensive shape and hope that they can at least get some points in this season. Now, in terms of the goal differential for FC Cincinnati, they have a minus 39 goal differential, which is not only the worst so far this season, but that's actually the worst ever in MLS history. So FC Cincinnati is going to break records this season, but unfortunately they're going to break records for the wrong reason, which is they're going to break the record for potentially the worst defense in the history of MLS, and also the team that has the worst goal differential in the history of MLS. And did I also mention the fact that they are dead last in MLS right now? Yeah, they're dead last in MLS, and it's not even close in terms of them being dead last and being in that wooden spoon kind of position that they are in. Now, in terms of the top goal scorer and the top assist leader, well, since they didn't score a lot of goals this season, you would expect the top goal scorer leader to be not the top goal scorer would not have a lot of goals, which you are right. Their top goal scorer only have 5 goals this season, and it's Emmanuel Ledesma that owns that chart with 5 goals so far this season. Alan Cruz follows him with 4 goals, same with Kikuta Mane with 4 goals. Darren Maddox with 3 goals, and Roland Lamar leads a bunch of FC Cincinnati players that currently only have 1 goal. Now, in terms of the top assist leader, it's Ledesma again leading that list with 4 goals. Darren Maddox, Kikuta Mane, and Roland Lamar all have 3 assists, while Berton currently have 2 assists to round up the top assist leader. Now, in terms of what went right for this team, so this is always the hardest part about doing the moving forward series because usually when you get into the beginning where you have these historically bad teams and these teams that just breaking some bad records, it is really hard to try to find some positive in their season. And I'm pretty sure if you ask any FC Cincinnati fans, I don't think they will say a lot of positive about this season, other than the fact that at least they are a team in MLS, and at least they didn't lose to the last 2 finalists in MLS, which that's still to be determined, considering the fact that they still have to play Atlanta at home, and knowing the fact that Atlanta, unlike when they played them in the early part of the season where Atlanta was struggling, yeah, this is going to be a complete different Atlanta team, and that I don't know if they're going to hold that mark as the team that at least didn't lost to the last 2 finalists in MLS Cup, and at least they of course win the wooden spoon, which I guess that's an achievement. I mean, you don't really want to win the wooden spoon because it means that you are literally the worst team in the league, but I guess maybe that at least is some silverware or some woodenware that can be belong in FC Cincinnati trophy case in MLS. Now, what went wrong for this team? Yeah, I can basically spend about an hour talk about what went wrong in this team, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to highlight some of the most obvious flaws that this team has. And one of the biggest flaws that this team has, and probably the reason why they're so bad, is both their attack and defense is historically bad. Not only it backs up by the stats line with them being worse in terms of the goal scoring and also the amount of goals that they have conceded, but it's really bad. Like, when you look at their team and the fact that coming into this season, they kind of set an identity of being a team that wants to be very compact and decided to try to hit teams on the counterattack and also score goals on the set piece. Well, yeah, that kind of identity really backfired, and you kind of saw it. Well, in the beginning, it kind of worked, but then it really backfired in the next couple of games, and that hence is the reason why they're attack and defense was historically bad. And also, I also want to highlight the fact that there's no identity in this team, and that, originally they did have an identity, but it was clear that that identity didn't work, and they just couldn't figure out another identity, or couldn't make the adjustment of the fact that, well, now we know that this of course won't work. We might think about trying something different, and it just feels like they didn't do that this season, and it just felt like they just say, well, if that didn't work, then we might as well just give up and just watch this crash crash down and just burn to pieces as what FC Cincinnati has had this season. And also the other thing that went wrong for them this season is that all the signings that they have made during this offseason has failed miserably. And well, I won't say all the signings that have failed miserably. I think I will say most of the signings that they have failed miserably, because I think there are a couple of players that I feel like they signed this offseason that kind of made a big impact. One of them is Alan Cruz, where I think he could be the cornerstone kind of piece that they can have in the future. But when you look at other signings that they have made this season, guys like Roland Lamar, Darren Mannix, Kakuta Mane, and even Fernando Audi, who is their designated player, who, by the way, Fernando Audi, and this is a fact, he actually have the same amount of goals that he have scored this season to the same amount of DUI that he has received this season. Like, when you receive more DUIs or the same amount of DUIs as you would have scored goals this season, you know that something has terribly went wrong this season, and I won't be surprised if FC Cincinnati might think about letting go Fernando Audi, because their only DP this season has not really been playing with this team. I mean, he has suffered a couple of injuries and also some disciplinary issue, but the thing is, he didn't make any impact, and coming into the season, and even coming into the last couple of months before they enter MLS, they thought Fernando Audi was going to be the piece for them, and that he's going to be that 15 goal scorer that they have, and it turns out that was clearly not the case. So I won't be surprised if he, of course, would let go, and I will also won't be surprised the fact that they just completely tear this team up at the off after this season is over, which that brings me to the moving forward part, where I really think they're just gonna have to start over and reconstruct this team. Like, I just don't see, like, there's very few players that I feel like could maybe stay for next season and could be part of this reconstruction that FC Cincinnati is going to do in the offseason. But it's clear that they just got to get rid of all that dead weight and all those players that they thought that they, of course, could make a big impact, and it turns out that it didn't quite work out. They need to clean those players out by the end of the season and hope that, in the offseason they, of course, can start signing a couple of players. I mean, the thing about FC Cincinnati is, and the good news about them is that at least they still have 2 DP spot left in their team, which also gets me to the next part of moving forward for them, of what they need to do, is they need to sign the attacking players with those DP slot. And that, I know they already have an attacking player in Fernando Audi in terms of that DP slot, but I have a feeling they're probably going to just buy him out, and that they're going to maybe open up that DP slot there so that they could potentially have all 3 DP slot open heading into the offseason. But seriously, they need to sign some attacking player. They need to first have a striker as one of their DP, and they also need to have a central attacking midfielder as their next DP. I mean, a DP central attacking midfielder, you've seen most of the good team in the league, and that what is one thing that they have all in common besides the fact that they are the best team in the league? Yeah, they have a DP caliber kind of central attacking mid player, and that number 10 row, and to get a designated player kind of central attacking midfielder in a team is just so crucial in this kind of era in MLS. And you have, as I mentioned before, every single good teams in MLS right now have at least have a DP kind of central attacking midfielder that can, of course, create some good bring some good creativity to the team to, of course, score goals. So that's one thing that FC Cincinnati would have to do, and maybe they could potentially sign a midfielder kind of designated player. I'm just hoping, if they're gonna sign a midfielder as word of their DP's spot, don't sign a central defensive mid. Like, we've seen it before, where they, of course, tried to burn their DP slot as one of their central defensive mid, and it kind of didn't quite work out. So we'll see if that, of course, is something that they're, of course, going to do with all their their DP slot, and also their international spot left in this team, because I think they still also have a couple of international spot left on this team. And then the third thing moving forward for this team is that can Yon bring stability in this team, and that can his whatever the tactics that he has set up with this team, will it work in the future with this team? I mean, right now I'm not going to judge the way that he is managing this team, because clearly this is not the team that he inherited when he came into FC Cincinnati, and that he was coming in a train wreck right now. The question is, how can he fix that train wreck and basically put the wheels back on track heading into the next season? And the pieces that, of course, he's going to get in the off season, will it actually make this team to have at least a little bit of a stability and at least a little bit of a future of the fact that they could definitely be a playoff kind of team? I mean, this team is still a long way in terms of competing in the playoffs, and I have a feeling they're pretty much going to have to go into the same route that Minnesota did when they came into the league, where in the first year it was a disaster. They need to kind of completely retool and completely kind of turn the roster over, and that in the next couple of seasons, that's when they, of course, are going to start to be competing for playoffs. So yeah, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. If you're an FC Cincinnati fan, what do you think about this video, and you know what you're going to do in the future? I mean, I definitely think that next season FC Cincinnati will not be as bad as they have been this season, and that at least they're going to hopefully bring in the right guys into the team, that at least they could maybe be close to compete in the playoffs. But yeah, with the mess that they have got themselves in this expansion year, and how they just got it so wrong in terms of coming into the league and building the squad that is clearly not MLS ready in their expansion year, is just beyond me. And that they need to, of course, learn from their mistake and try to kind of reconstruct this team and rebuild this team, as they, of course, are looking to try to be competitive in MLS. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.